had a few technical. What you say? Something about us being canceled. Oh, that might have been before Greg found his 50 feet of cat cable, and was crawling through a closet a minute ago. But we're here, and we're gonna go ahead and get as much of this story in as we can because that's the way I like to do things, just hastily and just half-assed. So let me put this down, and as we go back through, we're gonna start as we always do. We're gonna talk to everybody, but let's pretend like we already did that. Let's pretend like we already talked to everyone. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm going to tell us where we ended off last time, and because I goofed up one of the headlines, I'm gonna wait and do that again real quick as we're gonna dive back in to Project Cronus. This is probably a VOD for everybody at this point, so we'll make sure that we get this nice and where it needs to be. My wonderful Olympians, please tell everybody, or please tell me especially, if for some reason we have some more weird, bizarre internet problems. But the recap of last week is as follows, everyone, because before we can go forward, we have to go back, and as we go back, we check the following. Weather forecast calls for satanic brats and golf ball-sized hell. May and Pete ply their various pains with the miracle flask. Atop the train, Barney and Joe, best seats in the house. This little so-and-so needs a spanking. Aphrodite volunteers to whoop that ass. Pete goes to secure his friend's safety and some votes. A dutiful daughter arrives begging for the life of said brat. A knife in the back, an inglorious end. Et tu, Simon? Here lies Ruby Young Norwood. She was preceded in death by her parents, May and Barnabas. She leaves behind her parents, May and Barnabas. Simon says, nice catch, Mr. Mayor. Orient Express suffers separation anxiety. May asks the big questions. Have you tried moving them closer? Goddess of Love forces cars to kiss, and the fabled and ill-fated Orient Express chugs off into the future, or the past, or the future. And that brings us back to the beginning, where we have now stated that the group of Olympians you see in front of you have just had an hour and a half, Lord Almighty, a day and a half of downtime as they have been unable to locate the little brat in question, Simon Meadham, the little prankster that has caused them so much problems since their stay aboard the Orient Express, seemingly vanished after their confrontation on top of the train. Now that we have this day and a half in which to kind of see what's going on, I will remind everybody, my Olympians, that there are several loose threads here on the Orient Express before you reach your destination, one of many, of Milan. You have the bodies of Lorna Campbell Barnes and Margaret Bromwell that are back in the caboose. You have not investigated them beyond just seeing them at the murder site. You have the body of Ruby Foster, who arrived via jetpack to save you last episode, or attempt to. You also have the compartment of Lorna Campbell Barnes that's never been checked over, and of course you can, if you choose to investigate or interview any of the other passengers, you have free reign in which to do so. So, kids, I leave it up to you, as I'm going to sit here and perspire profusely for no reason other than I've been running around, I guess, maybe. Go ahead.
Barnabas, I guess, will start off by once he kind of catches his breath after bringing the body of old Ruby into May's cart carriage. He'll check over her body, being very, very gentle with it, but trying to find out if there's any sign of who this woman is. She said she's his daughter. That obviously seems far-fetched, although part of him feels there's something to that. But any kind of clues on her body?
Okay, so as you begin to kind of look over the body of Ruby Foster, you discover the following. I'm going to have you make a spot hidden check for a couple of these, but I'm going to give you some just because it's easy enough to reach certain conclusions. Okay, so yeah, as you're looking around, you find the following. You found a lighter, and upon the lighter, it seems, at least its flame does, seems eerily similar to the one that you use whenever you are casting some of your folk spells. It was in Ruby's left hand when she arrived, and it was then placed in yours at the time of her death. In addition to that, she is wearing a rosary. The rosary seems to be very ornate in that its beads and its linking are of a very high quality. You're not sure exactly what metal because of the spot hidden, but it does look like it's made out of certain elements that maybe go beyond not necessarily mass production, as that's not really in vogue right now with the rosary, but something more to the akin of this is handmade but also handcrafted. And when you look through there, you also find a photograph of what looks like it's a nameless lake. It's vaguely familiar to you. It's not something that you can because of the spot hidden roll, you can't really put a place to it. She's also wearing a glove that seems to be a heavily modified version of May's current glove. And that's about it.
So he takes all of the everything that he finds, and he's kind of putting it down in a pile. These carriages have beds, right? They're not just like the couch carriage. They're full sleeping compartments.
Correct. They are full sleeping compartments.
No, sort of set them out on the bed, then next to each other but separate. Does the rosary or the photo, do they have, like, if he turns the photo over, is there anything written on the back? Is there an inscription on the rosary?
It seems as if there had been an inscription on the rosary, but that it has been leveled, filed, or carved off of the back.
And Pete's with me, right? Pete help Barney bring the body in. So as he's setting this all out, and sort of waiting, I guess, for the arrival of the girls, he'll say to Pete, did you know her, Pete? She seemed to know you.
I can't say that I recognize her immediately, but I do feel like I've seen her before, or at least perhaps I would have.
Did you see her come in? Did you see how she got there on the top of that train?
Greg, I would need clarification. I can't remember if I had gotten to the top of the car at that point. I think I was still with. Okay.
You did not see Ruby's arrival as I was.
Yeah, she was on the train when I arrived.
Pete, but this is gonna sound crazy, but she flew like some sort of green light came. She flew down and then landed on the train.
I don't speak. Go ahead.
Oh, I don't know where she came from, but she said that she knew you. She asked for you before she died, and she said she was my daughter. How does any of this make sense?
I haven't got the foggiest. This whole thing has been one crazy episode after another. And Pete probably starts to kind of fidget a bit, and he would reach for his flask for a bit of a calming nerve, and would offer it to Barnabas as well.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. And you've seen Barney so far be pretty reserved. Like, he'll drink, but just a little bit. He takes a hard, long pull from the flask this time around.
Excellent.
Hands it back. Thanks, Pete. I don't know what to make of anything.
Would anybody else on the train, do you think they would have seen anything?
Joe saw it. I'm pretty sure Mimi, or whatever it is that's inside of Mimi, she was there. You ever read War of the Worlds, Pete? H.G. Wells?
Yeah, I believe I am familiar. What's the correlation?
That green creature that was inside Emil, that came out of his body, that was controlling him like he was some sort of like skin puppet. People flying down from God knows where onto the top of moving trains, and that kid that was up there, he wasn't a kid. I know he looked like it, but he wasn't a kid. And whatever's going on with Mimi, I think this sounds crazy, but I don't know. It's like something out of War of the Worlds, where there's these other creatures coming in and taking over. Like, we don't know who on this train is a person and who's one of those things.
Yeah, I would say the best course of action at this point would be to look at it like New York City politics. Trust no one.
I don't want to go through my life like that, Pete, but if we're talking about aliens, maybe you're right. But see this glove here? And he points to the more techie, futuristic looking version of May's glove. Doesn't this look just like May's, or sort of like that thing that May wore when she jumped into that fight back in the snow?
How about we ever take a look at it? She seemed to figure out the phonograph pretty good.
Oh shit! Where is she? Is she all right? She was running towards the and Barney will like explode out of the carriage and go looking for Mimi and May now.
Yeah, we're going to say that after about 5 to 10 minutes, you all kind of reconvene in your car that had been gifted to you. I will also say, as Roller beat me to the punch in chat, Barney, when you drank from the Miracle Flask, you regain 1 sanity if you are down 1. So the cooling, warm, numbing effects of the alcohol, it's just a miracle.
Just like in real life.
Right. Only this is permanent, so you get to keep that for a while, as normally, at least in tequila's sake, it fades. What? Anywho. Okay, so you all reconvene. We're going to say that for the purposes of the narrative, several hours have passed. You guys are able to... You have the body of Ruby Foster. Any narrative that you wish to explain during that time as the recounting of her arrival on the roof... Oh, by the way, she's also wearing a small pack on her back that is roughly 10 inches by 10 inches. It's a perfect square. It seems to have venting on the bottom of it. And if you all want to look at anything in particular with her, that is fine. I will also tell you this, without the benefit of a roll or you all needing one. Now that you guys are on the train and the conductor and his men have been kind of brought in, and there's a bit of normalcy coming back to the Orient Express as they've released the kind of flow through between the cabins, as the passengers are getting very restless and they need to go get something to eat, get something to drink, hither and yon. Anytime somebody even lays a peripheral glance in Aphrodite's direction, it's immediate gasps, immediate kind of staring, and for a polite society, as this is supposed to be, it is a very rude gesture, and it's very apparent at any just brief public interaction in which Aphrodite is present. But tell me what you like to do.
I don't think Aphrodite has said anything to anyone since pulling the train back together. She just got quiet.
May, of all of these gadgets to point out to her, is going to, as soon as she sits down and takes a little breather, is gonna take a look at them, especially the glove, which is pretty similar to what she was doing. And she's a little miffed because she thinks that she was hoping that her thing was a brand new thing, but clearly there's somebody else with it. Now, if Roll20 will cooperate with me, that'd be nice. But I will roll a mechanical repair roll if you would like me to, Greg, once Roll20 decides to load.
Sure thing. Yeah, absolutely. You want me to do it for you? I'll just
Yes,
sit here.
please. I
You
get
get to do-
handy, so I get advantage on any mechanical repair rolls.
Sure thing. An 89 and a 91. Now I'm gonna let you roll them. Let's just say that she passes. As you load in, let's go ahead and say
Okay.
that she passes, because I'm not going to. A mechanical roll by May is going to succeed.
Okay.
Okay, so you are looking in particular at what?
First the glove and then the pack, essentially.
Okay. We'll roll a separate one as a donation has come in, and we're going to roll a d4 to decide who gets it. 1 May, 2 Mimi, 3 Barney, and 4 Honest Pete. So would somebody like to roll me a d4 in Roll20, as Mal has sent in a wonderful boon for one of you lovely people.
Thank you, Mal.
Who's rolling it?
Dawn
One.
did for a 1, and it is May. May receives the boon. And how apropos is it that she is currently looking over things that fit that very definition of a boon that were, until about 10 seconds ago, broken. So, May, as you start looking over the glove, you realize that the base or the foundation of this glove, the inner workings of the circuitry, the kind of overlays, the base kind of soldering, even mistakes that you have kind of made that you decided weren't design flaws enough to produce a new type or a new prototype, you see all of those markings on this same glove, but they're deeper, as layer upon layer of evolution has gone into this, where original materials have been kind of cast aside as the materials are then worked in favor of maybe elements that you don't really even notice, as the jointing for the fingers and the padding on the hands seem to be more supple yet stronger to just your grip. They seem insulated. When you kind of stick your own hand into it, it fits, but it's off just a little bit too, as if it's been worn by somebody other than yourself. We're going to have another boon coming up. We're going to keep the same number. So, Dawn, if you want to roll another one for me, we're going to use the same numbers that we had for a second. And a 4, that's Honest Pete Abraham, as Pete continues to get booned up. He still has 1 outstanding. So, Honest Pete, you have 2 boons coming your way. Thank you very much, Twilight, as the Olympians are finding love here. Certainly not from my internet provider, but from chat, who is way more important. It's infantile, universally more important. But as you look at this, May, you realize that it's not something that is foreign to you. As you look and you kind of go down through the circuitry and the padding, you immediately realize, oh, this is for that. That's a great idea. And as you think to yourself, that's a great idea, you think, no, that just makes sense. Yeah. And you immediately know how to repair it. Should it ever, it seems that there is some damage to it where it wasn't necessarily, it looked like it had been damaged in the past, but not repaired correctly. And you think, no, I can fix this. This just needs to go here. And it immediately becomes something of a familiar discovery. As you look at it, you understand it. But like a scientist observing a new element from a meteorite from a far-off planet, you run the basic tests and you say, no, I know what this is. This is a metal that basically goes with an alkaline type of blah, blah, blah. You understand it. And while you have your other glove, this glove can either act as a bridge to creating your own version, or you can begin to use this one, which is essentially your glove from 1933.
Awesome. Yeah, so as she's sat down and she's kind of poring over it. She has her notebook out at her side as she's just writing down furious notes with the glove in one hand and the other hand basically not stopping as she finishes writing things.
Okay. If you're in now, I'd like you to roll yourself for the pack.
Yes, I am in. Can I go up and success.
Fantastic. As I always knew that you would. With the success, this takes a little bit. This is something, and we're going to say that this is over the course of that day and a half that we mentioned. This is taking you maybe several hours of that 36 to kind of sit and go, okay, what's going on here? As you look and you say, my God, you didn't see this, but you can surmise even before Barney explains it, that this is a propulsion system that could probably carry the weight of anywhere from 250 to 300 pounds. And in so doing that, you believe that you could create or mimic these effects. It appears to be in working order. It's just that there is a compartment about the size of a brick that has some greenish residue on the inside, which is more similar to clay than it is to something harder. And it seems to kind of been in this area. It's the largest empty portion inside this 10-inch by 10-inch square. And it doesn't take you too terribly long to realize that this is most likely the fuel source. And with the description that Barney gave you and Joe gave you of this green flame that came from the back of this jetpack, you believe this must have been the primary solid core, the fuel source for this thing. You think if you find some more, you can get it fired up.
Awesome. So during this whole time, if anybody's around her as she's doing this, she's doing the techno babble, like just kind of, instead of really pause to see if or look up to see if they're understanding it, she's just kind of, and see if you just you twitch these wires and then you put in the things, and then you should be able to lift up a whole person for perhaps maybe hours. I don't know. And she just kind of word vomiting.
You would notice that Joe is staying with you most of the time, and as you write notes, he's not looking over your shoulder. He's kind of like across, and if you kind of like slide something out of the way in favor of kind of going in a different direction as you're thinking, he would then kind of slide it towards him as he looks, and you realize that he has at least a passing knowledge of what it is that you specialize in. It takes him much, much longer to reach the same conclusions that you're kind of making in your mind and not writing down. But, maybe a couple hours after you say, oh, this is the ignition switch, he'll go, the ignition! And then, you give him the look like, yeah. And he kind of goes back and does his thing. But he pays particular interest to a lot of what you're doing here as well.
Aphrodite's in the room. She's just been standing kind of looking out the window with her arms like across herself.
I think Barney's probably sat down next to the body and like absentmindedly, like his hand is sort of like placed over top of the dead woman's hand. And he's for a time he's like trying to keep up with May, but it goes into an area where he's like, all right, well, I don't wires, and he'll look over to Aphrodite and say, Mimi, you there? Can you explain any of this?
She kind of turns her head your way, like she hears you. Maybe some of it.
Well, look, please, I'm all ears. We just met, all of us. We're new to this, and well, I've never seen anything like this before. But whatever's going on, if you know anything, please.
We didn't just meet. I mean, you right now. And me. Yes, but I've known you for a long time.
Pete would Pete would interject and simply state, "You saw me die."
That's why I'm here.
Barney's trying to put the pieces together, and he's not quite there. He'll sort of gesture down with his chin to Ruby. This woman, she flew in. You saw her. I saw her. Joe saw her. You knew her. You seem like you knew her.
I saw her in passing when I was leaving. What did she say to you?
She said she was my daughter. That's what she said.
I guess that happened after I left.
Where are you from?
Somewhere years from now. Time was hard to keep track of in the in-between.
Like the future? Or the past?
The future, yes.
Oh, well, I guess that ain't any crazier than whatever that thing Emil was, or half the other things we've seen tonight. So you're not like that boy up there. You're not some sort of spirit, some sort of monster. You are Mimi, just...
I'm not Mimi.
Is she okay?
I don't know where your Mimi is.
Barney looks down to the old woman, Ruby. If you're from the future, then you already know what's going to happen to us here.
I wasn't here last time. Everything's different.
It's a lot to take in. Looks around to May and Joe and Pete.
It's at this time, my Olympians, that I will slip in to let everyone know that Barney, you have received a boon. Pete, you have received a boon. And because we went over our 25K in cheers, the entire party gets a partial level up, as is our habit here on the channel. So you all get 15% to put in whatever stat you would like.
Yay!
But what do we do now? I'm still looking between everybody.
And what a perfect time for there to be a knock at the door.
Pete would probably immediately glance at everybody, kind of the, let's not make a sound. Because he's brave.
Barnabas grabs a shotgun. Quietly.
I'll fucking
hello?
go open the door.
As you kind of pull the door open, as it's a sliding door on the Orient, kind of ripping it a bit, like faster than normal speed, you see Rene Clement as he pulls back a bit at both your appearance and the rapid nature in which you like have opened the portal. And as he kind of looks around at everybody and says, "Is there some way we can assist you? Is there something you need? Is there anything that you will need here? We've found Emil's belongings.
She'll just hold out her hand.
He pulls like a medicine, like a doctor's bag, and almost like he's completely avoiding flesh to flesh or the possibility of flesh to flesh contact, he kind of extends from the bottom of the case, placing the handle in Aphrodite's hand. Here you are.
Anything else?
No. I will return if there's something else. And he just cuts, exit stage right.
Is there any way I can catch up to him before he fully departs?
Absolutely. Yeah, he would slow down if he saw the normal one coming towards him.
Yeah, so Pete would immediately kind of like almost a feeling of like friendship. Like, hey, and kind of like put his arm around Emil and would just kind of work on comforting him, letting him know that we, my companions and I, are 100% behind him. And that it is through his devout leadership of this locomotive that I'm sure everything is going to be okay, and he has absolutely nothing to worry about.
Roll a charm roll for me, as Renee does not think that there is anything normal about the situation, and he's pretty sure he's fired. But as of right now, your words do find purchase, and it is comforting to the point where maybe for the next minute or two, the conductor gets a bit of, merci, oui. And he just kind of visibly slumps as the rigors of leadership in a situation that nobody can really be trained for, but this is not the purview or the arena of a luxury transportation conductor, so he appreciates your words.
Okay. I would go back to the room.
Aphrodite just drops the bag like on the bed with all the other stuff.
As it hits.
What? What's in this? Barney will start to open the bag.
As you pop open the doctor bag, it is surprisingly empty. As you look inside it, you realize that whatever had been accumulated in this bag, you're not even sure if this bag was originally Emil's or something that was kind of scooped up to put a bunch of loose items into. You see coinage, paper money, nothing out of the ordinary, but it seems that whatever was in or remained in his place where he stayed, or maybe in the caboose area, it was kind of all put into this bag. There is, however, one thing that seems to be prominently displayed that Rene himself realized was probably a vital piece of information. It is a note. Upon the note are the following 4 names: Margaret Bromwell, and in parentheses, Paris; Lorna Campbell Barnes, Paris; Werner Schmidt, Paris; and Maria Stagliani, Venice.
Barnabas will sort of look up to May and Pete close to him with the note and say, I think this has to do with who was being targeted, why they were being targeted. If you want to take a look. What was the last one again, Greg?
It was Maria Stagliani, and I misspoke. It is not Venice, it is Milan.
Milan. And have we heard the name Maria Stagliani before? The other ones sound familiar.
Yeah, without a roll, you have not heard that name.
Okay.
Yeah, May will take the note.
And that could have been a name overheard in the social car, right? Would it be all right to make a roll on it?
Yeah, if you want to go ahead and let's make a straight intelligence check here, as we'll see if just how drunk was Pete when he was in the social car. Very is the answer, but not quite 2 though. Pete, you remember, you talked with a lot of people, and the purview of a very good politician is remembering everybody's name and at least one detail about their lives. You don't remember meeting anyone by the name of Maria Stagliani. However, the last name, you remember Stagliani as being in passing conversation when you were sitting there with Lorna Campbell Barnes and Maxine Schmidt.
Yeah, I would divulge the information I have available, as limited as it is.
If she's not on the train, I'm going to make a guess and say that the city names are where they've been picked up, where they've joined the journey. That's where Lorna Campbell Barnes joined, and Margaret Bromwell. If this Maria's not on here yet, it seems she'll be joining the journey soon.
She'll be a target, just like they were.
Well, seems like we'll have to keep an eye out for her before anyone else finds her.
Yeah, I think you're right, and we should go before we get to Milan and talk to Werner Schmidt. Make sure he's okay. See if maybe his tongue will be a little looser now that we've saved his life. I'm gonna step outside for a smoke. I'll be back. And he kind of pulls away from Ruby and gets a cigarette out, and he'll just go smoke out in the hall through a window.
This is 1915. No need to open a window if you don't want to, as smoking is good for you now. It has vitamins in it. It's recommended by the Surgeon General. So yeah.
He'll still open a window just to get the breeze in his face.
Yeah, it rushes in eerily, kind of reminding you of when Aphrodite climbed onto the roof and you had to stick your head out. You get a kind of a pseudo flashback to that moment. What's everybody else doing? I'm going to go ahead and fast forward you here at least several hours if there isn't anything else pressing that you have to do in this moment.
one thing Pete would do is, seeing Barney kind of leave the chair, Pete would have a moment where he would go and sit next to Ruby Foster, and likely more so in his head would almost kind of question her as if she were on the witness stand, like never, not saying anything, but just kind of, how were you there? I saw you in my vision, just kind of running through various things, because he, if I remember correctly, Pete saw her in the grotesque monster that took him out, right? Wasn't she included in?
Correct. Pete in 1933 saw her very clearly as he was consumed, devoured, and ultimately killed by the Stitched Together. And in that flash that you were granted at Aphrodite's arrival, you were able to not only see but remember, even though the details are a bit cloudy, certain elements of your own potential demise. That demise which enabled you to realize that you weren't going to die at the hands of whatever the creature was at the back of the train, and thus emboldened you into action. But yeah, so you can definitely remember enough of Ruby's features inside the Stitched Together to confirm her identity in the much older woman that you see lying in state before you.
Okay, so at one point I would probably just before leaving to probably go and smoke as well, would probably take her hand and probably just kind of whisper that I guess I'll be seeing you again, and then would go and enjoy a few cigars.
Roll a spot hidden for me.
Nope.
Nope. Okay, he's got cigars and drinking on his mind as obviously Ruby does not respond, but the possibility seems very likely that their paths will cross in some fashion again, or have already. Okay, so Pete gets up, leaves, and goes about his own ruining of his lungs and having a grand old time doing it.
And are there any passengers walking by?
Not in your car, but as soon as you kind of head back towards the social car and where they serve food and drinks, you start to see that there are more people kind of populating the outside of the car again. You know, there's traffic of some kind. It's much more subdued than it was, and predominantly the discussion is of what happened, what caused there was a fire. We heard that, there were gunshots. No, of course there weren't gunshots. There was something wrong with it. Did you feel that lurch in the cars? I thought we were going backwards for a second. Just very bizarre kind of happenstance types of things that to be mostly true, that everyone's kind of making more rational conclusions based upon, the fact that they're A, not dead, and B, how could it possibly be anything other than something benign?
Yeah, so I think if you were going to be fast forwarding, one thing Pete would do is just kind of work the social car, changing topic as much as possible, spin, just kind of, oh yeah, someone mentioned something odd that occurred or some theory or whatever, and just tries to shift focus around and play the social butterfly.
Okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to say that Pete is spreading his own form of magic here. I'm going to have Pete make 3 rolls. Those rolls can be fast talk, charm, persuasion, or any combination of the 3. You'll make the 3, and dependent upon your success, it's your ability to, much as Aphrodite can just generate an emotion for the train, you are creating a mood for the Orient Express. So let's see what exactly the Silver-Tongued Devil has in store for the people. Go right ahead. Okay. Okay, so we hit the entire spectrum of an extreme. Yep, an extreme, a regular success, and a hard success. I will tell you now that I was looking for an average of hard throughout all 3 rolls, which you have succeeded in, as you are able to almost single-handedly act as mental nurse, social surrogate, and calming influence for the Orient Express, as within a couple hours of drinking, the mood of the entire train has changed. Sure, there was a problem, but of course there's always a problem on something like this. I mean, when you're traveling in such luxury, you really don't like to hear about such things, but did you see how quickly they had us going? Boy, oh boy. And the mood completely shifts from one of anger to one of generalized acceptance. In fact, several people were saying, boy, this will be a great story that I'll have going forward, that I was on the Orient Express when it stopped and I was able to see this, that, and the other thing. I will tell you this, you have given Renee a better chance of keeping his job.
That's what I'm here for.
As I make my Renee job note. Okay, so is there anything else anybody wants to do before I flash you forward a day and a half?
I think the only thing that Aphrodite would be interested in would be the bodies that brought her here.
Okay.
I think she would just kind of, without saying anything, just turn and leave the car where May and Joe are, and just head back to where she'd heard them say that the bodies were.
Okay. We'll say that if you wanted to, I know Aphrodite doesn't necessarily do these types of things, but if she wanted to power down for a bit, we can say that you do this immediately or 6 to 8 hours after, or is she recharging her batteries at all, or is she just...
Yeah, I think she would wait for a while. She's exhausted after everything that's happened. I think she's quiet for a really, really long time. So it's probably later in this section. Like,
Okay.
she's rested for a hot second.
Alrighty. So what we'll say is we're going to give you, we'll just say that this is kind of half the time before, like we're going 18 hours ahead, as this is like the midway point between the arrival at Milan. As you go back, you are met with increasing, even though Pete has done a very, very great job of increasing the mood upon the Orient, a mood that's actually palpable. You can taste it. You can feel it. You can feel the hope and the acceptance and the, sure, everything's going to be fine, a calming influence that kind of bleeds into you a bit. However, you see as you are walking around, that all eyes are on you, especially when you kind of pass through the social car. Whether or not Aphrodite cares is beside the point, but she's getting an incredible amount of attention. Nobody is missing your passage.
Yeah, she kicked her shoes off pretty early too, so that's fun. Yeah, she doesn't pay them any mind. She just walks through as if there were no one there.
Okay. And Mal, thank you very much for gifting those subs out. Fantastic stuff. Appreciate the love today, guys. These Olympians deserve it. Everybody that has a sub, got a sub, subbed up, remember you have 2 crits to give to anybody on this show, 1-to-1, or anybody on any of the other shows on the channel. Thank you very much, everyone. So as you get back to, let's see, crits for Barney. He's looking low as Barney gets 2 crits in from Lord Conti. I'll make a mention and I'll put them on the overlay as soon as I get a little chance to do so, everybody. I am making notes for them right now on old school postcards, because that's me, old school. Anywho, as you walk back, you see that the bodies, for a moment it looks like the man that Renee put in charge of the caboose is not going to let you in until he realizes you're the weird one. And he steps back and kind of unlocks... Twilight gave me the crits to use for NPCs. Oh, I like that idea quite a bit. Thank you very much, Twilight. So as you get into the back, he ultimately lets you in, and when you go in, you see the completely naked bodies of Margaret Bromwell and Lorna Campbell Barnes, but they are wrapped. They don't really have anything like body bags. However, what they've done is kind of secure them in tarps that were used to kind of, in the event of some type of, window breaking, that they would be able to kind of throw these up to keep the elements out of the Orient. And it doesn't take you much to kind of undo the cabling and release the bodies. as you are able to examine them. What are you looking for?
She's looking for she's looking for anything like ritualistic. She's kind of trying to figure out why these people, like, do they have anything in common with each other? Is there anything unique about them? And then she's kind of just trying to figure out if like this was meant for her. Like she's trying to confirm that somebody set this up to bring her specifically here.
Okay. Roll me a spot hidden, please. Yeah, you can, for the low cost of 6 luck, you can...
Sure, I'll do it.
Also, this is a good time to kind of remind Chad and remind the players that luck, it's a great thing. If you fail a roll, you can use your pool of luck to make it successful. Also, a very, very important rule in Pulp Cthulhu, if you face a situation or you are injured to the point of death, spending 30 luck will save you. So it's always a good rule of thumb to keep 31, just to make sure if something really bad happens, you've got at least one get out of jail free card. So with the expulsion or the spending of the 6 luck, you are able to learn the following. It takes you a bit, and as you're looking at them, you identify that they were prepared in a similar fashion. It looks as if their chest cavities, though the ribs are intact, the flesh above the ribs are intact, beneath them in the gut or the hollow abdomen area, everything inside has been scooped clean. Maybe from the back of Mimi's mind, she draws forth a very old memory of carving a pumpkin when she was little. It has a very real application in this observation, as everything that was inside was taken outside. And it's clean to the point of being, it almost looks like it was burned to keep it from oozing or weeping on the inside. And as you're examining more and as you pass through a tunnel, you realize that there is a glow coming from inside the rib cages of each of the women. You think that if you put your head in there or got a mirror, you may be able to learn a little bit more.
She don't care. She'll just put her head in.
Yeah, we're going to do your version of sanity as you do this, as you as you wear the human hats that are Lorna Campbell Barnes and Margaret Bromwell.
Okay.
So,
hold, please.
And you are alone.
I'm using 9 magic points. Cool. That's not good for you guys. Uh-oh. Oh no, we're fine. It's love. So yeah, this triggers love, which means that anything that tries to attack me, anyone that can will get in the way so that I don't take damage. But hopefully nobody's around.
Okay,
right now.
But as this pulse of love kind of goes out from the rear of the train, it doesn't affect the entire train. But Pete, if you are currently, the mood is one of peace and acceptance, of a calming nature, and all of a sudden there's a wash of just tremendous affection, and you notice that several of the spouses that are on the social car embrace and they kiss, and some people that are decidedly not married to the person they're kissing kiss. There's a lot of kissing. Like, you note that there's a lot of affection going on here. And, people seem to just really be enjoying themselves here on the Orient Express. All thoughts of the unpleasantness seem to be, at the very least, pushed to the periphery of consciousness as they are loving their lives at this particular moment. But back inside the human beings, as you slip your head in and kind of almost put their rib cage on like a helmet that fits as their sternum kind of goes down the middle of your nose, it's close. There's not a whole lot of wiggle room in there, but you can see that there are runes that are written on the inside of the rib cages of each of these women. They are almost identical, but you notice upon your observations, why don't you give me an occult roll and I will tell you what you learn from these runes. With an extreme, which is a critical here in Pulp Cthulhu, as you put on these heads, sliding, as you said, into each of them, it is a spell. It is a spell of summoning and one of expulsion. The summoning names you, the Tyrannish, and the expulsion names one Mimi as the target. This was indeed designed for you. It was to bring you and send her.
Does it say where she is or where she was sent?
It looks as if with that extreme, I'll tell you this, it doesn't seem that it was anything more than switching places.
Oh, fun. Okay. Yeah, after she realizes that, she kind of feels trapped here. And she doesn't know what she's supposed to do to save Pete, because the thing she thought she was supposed to do, she was stopped from doing. So I think after she finishes all of this up, she'll head back to the car.
Okay. And as you head back, again, even though there's a wave of love and calm and affection kind of creeping over everybody as you go forward and travel back through the car, we cut to halfway through the journey as everyone is able to relax a bit, calm down a bit from everything that has happened, especially with the wave of love that didn't quite reach the car of our Olympians, but it seems that Joe Dietrich got a little bit of it as he gets closer and closer to May, as he is reading. Thank you for the raid, everybody. Raid coming in. Show him some love in chat. Appreciate it very much. As he gets closer and closer to May and begins to offer, they're helpful. He's kind of giving you kind of peripheral knowledge in addition to what you're gleaning from the pack and the glove. Just certain materials that maybe you didn't really kind of need to know what they were at this point, but he decides that these things that you have more important points to discuss, he'll take some of the minor ones to kind of just bleed in the colors of the overall painting. And so yeah, he's working with you quite a bit. The only place that you have not looked at yet is the cabin of Lorna Campbell Barnes. You don't have to if you don't wish to. You are heading, though, towards Milan.
Barney will check out the cabin.
Okay.
And if anyone else wants to go with him.
You can go alone. It's just Cthulhu.
Yeah.
It's just Cthulhu.
And he might tell somebody in passing, like he might pop his head back into the cabin and see that Joe's scooted a little closer to May and be like, I'm going to go take a look at that Lorna's cabin. She was after some sort of book. It was a gospel. She was looking for a new gospel in Constantinople. So I'm going to look into that.
Oh, interesting. If you need any help, I could come along. I was looking into Margaret Bromwell's room. Maybe I'll find something similar.
Well, yeah, you're welcome to come along, or I'm just going to take a quick look. It shouldn't take me too long, but if you want to come, you're welcome. You too, Joe. You can come too, if you'd like.
Yeah. Of course. as Joe gets up and kind of straightens and rolls down his sleeves as if he had been doing very hard work, reapplying his cufflinks. And so as you all make your way to the room of Lorna Campbell Barnes, I will tell you this, as you walk inside, it has been sealed since the time of her disappearance. Unfortunately, you do find the body of a man inside as soon as you open it. There are guards posted kind of around to maintain kind of at least a perimeter in this room. But the man is wearing the same clothing as a steward for the Orient Express. He appears to be very dead. The room also looks like it has been tossed. There are papers everywhere.
Well, I wish I could say I was surprised, but at this point, I don't think that I have much surprise left in me today. There's got to be a reason why these people are being targeted. I suspect it has something to do with what we're after in Constantinople, and probably the same thing that they're after, if I had to guess. So maybe, I don't know, maybe she left some sort of... Maybe they didn't find what they were looking for, and I guess he'll start looking around through the tossed room, looking for anything that mentions Constantinople, an artifact, the lost gospel, I think is something she had mentioned in one of the early episodes, one of the early scenes.
Sure. Anybody that is checking in that manner, roll me a spot hidden. If there's an examination done, kind of a medical nature on the body, medicine check. But go ahead and whoever's there, you may roll.
Barnabas
Okay.
looks distracted as he's going through things. You can kind of tell his heart's not really in it right now.
Yeah, Barney, you find a bunch of papers. A lot of it doesn't make much sense. A lot of them seem to be academic papers that don't hold to the topic that you believe that she was focused on. However, with that hard success, May, you're kind of doing the same thing as you kind of search around and look through. But just when you're about ready to give it up, you realize that behind the bed, between the bed and what would be kind of the fused wall of the Express, you see the corner of a notebook. And when you pull it out, you realize that it is heavily bound. It is wrapped with some type of leather cord, and there are notes kind of sticking haphazardly out of it.
Yeah, so she'll, after pulling it out, she'll kind of sit on the bed. Joseph Barnabas, I think I found something.
Joe stands up and he says, I'll go tell someone about this body. I'll be right back. And he leaves.
Barnabas kind of stands near the body and half turns towards May and lights another cigarette. What is it? What'd you find?
A notebook of some form. If this Lorna Campbell Barnes is anything like myself, notebooks hold everything. And she'll unwind it and start.
Okay. May, you can look at it yourself. Barney, if you'd like to saddle up and sit down beside May, you can look at it as well. Whoever decides to do so, give me a library check.
Barnabas will take a seat next to May, just kind of look over her shoulder.
Okay, so as you start to look, perhaps maybe it's the proximity, perhaps it's the things that have gone on, the wave of love. Barney finds himself distracted as he sits here on the bed with May. May, however, is able to glean the following. This is brief. This is like just going through and something jumps out at you. You see that this is indeed follow-ups and facts that are written. You see just kind of headlines or writings and locations, question marks following questions, pointing to different areas that are stuffed in these books. As soon as you open it, it kind of almost vomits up loose paper as you're making sure you kind of keep it where it needs to be, and are gingerly turning the pages and making sure that inserted sheets of paper don't slip and are off position inside the book. You see that there are several indications of possible gospel claims to be according to the Book of Thomas. You also see a note where she seems to be writing in her own hand. However, the partial rubbing I received indicates something far more curious. A gospel according to Pilate. And she also seems to have found what would be the first line of this gospel. It says, "I was a dutiful Roman until I met my friend, Jesus of Nazareth." And that's where we're going to end this session of Project Cronus, as this old man has a place he needs to be, and the internet gods, thank you, they accept the cable I gave as an offering. Thank you very much, everybody, for sticking around for this. Please follow for our going live notifications. We usually run for 2 hours every week, every Saturday from 2 to 4. We were a little shortened today because of prior commitments and the aforementioned internet, but please check back on our YouTube channel to find any of the prior adventures. As I said, most of these episodes are standalone. You can watch them together. They're episodic, but they do build on one another, as this story is being told in both 1915 and with the older versions of these characters in 1933. We're stuck in 15 for a bit because there's been some trouble in 33. Needs to get ironed out before we go forward. And as we say here, you've got to go back before you go forward. But let's go around to everybody so you can meet them, know who they are, and accordingly follow them on Twitter so you can see the beautiful things that they put together every week. Summer, let's start with you. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. We got some good information today. I'm glad that we got to play even for a little while. I'm glad that the chord offering worked.
It did.
Yeah. This is great. I love playing with you guys every week, especially after last week. We definitely needed a kind of a cool down session to recoup from that. But yeah, I'm Summer. You can find me online on Twitter at Just a Summer Job. That's the best place to keep up with me and everything I do. I run a channel on Twitch called Off the Table, _the table. We're starting up a bunch of new shows. So yeah, just keep an eye on my Twitter to, know what's going on. But otherwise, we'll see you guys next time.
Absolutely. And as Lord Conti is saying in chat, there are terrible things ahead. So make sure that as we are going in towards our season finale, we have 12 episodes in this here season. This is episode 10. So we have 2 more before we see at least a partial pause in the story of these Olympians. And just what it will uncover should be interesting. Yes, well done, everyone, except Grimjack's internet service provider, who shall not be named. Let's drop down to another person that definitely needs to be named, as he was able to make everybody on the Orient Express. He made rich Europeans feel happy after they wanted to be miserable. This is something that needs to be applauded. Finney, how are you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. I had another blast. It's so great to have such a wonderful cast to work off of, and you're not bad yourself as keeper. I would support a nomination. But yeah, it was such a blast. At Flathagen on Twitter. I'm here every Saturday because Greg, you are my only. But yeah, so much fun. I enjoyed Pete having getting to use those social skills for good or ill is yet to be determined.
Fantastic. Yes, Honest Pete Abraham for President 2020, or for Mayor of New York City in 1933. We'll see how that goes. Let's jump over to Don. Don, how are you doing, buddy?
Oh, I'm great. I'm glad we got to play today, despite the odds. Yeah, this was a nice episode. We got to get some more information, kind of set up the things that are to come. More like character mixing up, which is always fun to pair different characters with each other that we haven't gotten to do that yet very much. Yeah, it's hard to you get to a point in a game like this where there's so many bad things that have happened in a short period of time. It's like, how do I navigate? Okay, and then that's kind of what this episode was for me, which is I really enjoyed, and I can't wait for next week. I can't wait to get to Milan, and maybe we'll even get off the train for a while. I don't know how that works. I don't. Barney's a train guy. I'm not a train guy. Do you get off the train? Is there a break? I guess we'll find out next week.
We'll figure it out.
You can follow me at Donathan Fry on Twitter, where I'll post about all the different stuff that I do. Tonight at 10 p.m., I'm DMing the Blood Plague over on Encounter Roleplay for their 48-hour marathon. I wrote the Blood Plague. It's a dark fantasy, grim fantasy adventure in the Turncloaks podcast world. Summer created that book with me, so she had a huge part in that. And we're going to be playing it tonight. And spoiler alert, it's not going to go well for those guys. So if you want to see some pain and suffering, 10 p.m. tonight on Encounter Roleplay, I'll be there.
Fantastic. I will always tune in for pain and suffering. It's my jam. Let's go up to Kiana. Kiana, how are you doing today?
I am doing great. I am, again, repeat the sentiment. I'm glad we were able to get a little bit of playing in today, do some setup, some shipping's happening. Chat seems torn as to what's going on there. So keep on watching for more drama, because that's what feeds me doing all that. Yeah, so I'm really excited to see where we're gonna go with this, what we're gonna find for season penultimate and finale. I'm terrified and excited for that. Yeah, you guys can find me over on Twitter at KianaS. Best way to figure out what I'm doing, because I am all over the internet playing role-playing games almost every single day of the week, especially with the new season coming up, because I've got a whole bunch of new shows happening everywhere from here to Off the Table to Scarlet Academy. So I'll be doing all those announcements over the next week, so definitely check that out. And if you want a little bit of a nice, fun breather before Dawn's terribleness of the Blood Plague, I am running Honey Heist on EncounterCon at 7 p.m. Eastern. So if you want to see me GM some crazy shenanigans as I try to herd a group of people playing criminal bears, that's where to find that. It'll be fun. It'll be full of puns. So yeah, but until next time, I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm excited anyways.
Fantastic. And to answer the question, first off, I love all these people. Please follow them. Links are in chat. Twilight, we will be starting a new season all across the shows. They will be ending end of September, beginning October will the new seasons begin. A couple of them are staggered a bit because this is con season, so we have to make sure that we have our the most we can get out of our cast and have our full complement as we go into the ends of these stories. We also have several new shows that are going to be coming in the upcoming weeks, most of them starting in October. We will also be having one-shots here at the channel where we begin to do viewer games and have weekly games where we're going to be doing Simbaroom and Cthulhu one-shots and a bunch of systems that I've desperately wanted to play in, as I will both be GMing and playing in those games. So please follow and look for those in the future. Twitter's the best place. Grimjack21502 on the Twitches and the Twitters, and we will be getting into that quite soon. But until then, take care of yourselves, everybody. 2018 is internet service providers. They rule the world now, and we must fight against them. So meet us back here in 1915, where we will do our best to give you a good time, and normally it's not interrupted by ISPs. But until then, we also spoke of Encounter Roleplay. Let's go raid them right now, as they are in the middle of EncounterCon. Let's go over there, say hi to them, tell them that you came from here, you wanted to go there, and you wanted to see Kiana and Dawn tonight. Until then, everybody, love you much, love you forever, hate the ISPs. Bye.